Welcome everyone! Today we're going to do something we haven't done before. We are doing a tier list without knowledge. That makes sense. I haven't played a single game on the new patch, and I've barely gotten any impressions or seen any games as well from the new patch. So I'm kind of entering this fresh with the thought of, okay, I know what the changes are. Now I'm going to predict how good each civ is going to be. And then down the road, maybe a month from now or so, a month or two, I'm going to revisit this list, make a new list, and we're going to compare how right or wrong I was. And I would recommend you to tag along and make your own list on the side, and we can compare all our lists. Either way, that's the premise of this. I haven't done this before, so I think it should be a lot of fun. And I would say we just go ahead and get started. So starting off with the Aztecs first. Aztecs pretty much unchanged. The biggest change to Aztecs is that the eagles are now 5 food more. Besides that, you get the new gambesons and 1 extra pierce armor on jaguars. By the way, this list is primarily for Arabia 1v1. I think that's the easiest way to make a list. And Aztecs, they're going to remain S tier as they always have been. I don't think the nerf to the eagles are going to make them that much worse, because they already are so good anyway. Bengals is second civ. They have a new bonus where melee cavalry gain +2 damage against skirmishers. You're not gonna see this too much, I reckon, so it's not a massive bonus, but obviously it can be helpful if the other guy is going skirm to counter your Ratha or whatever. Having light cav then to jump on the skirms. It also affects Ratha, by the way, so if you put Ratha in melee mode, it's going to make you do a lot more damage to skirms, well, 2 more damage. Mahayana also applies to monks, and they receive supplies and gambesons. I don't remember where I've had Bengal in the past, probably D or C. I reckon they should be probably C tier. Yeah, I think Bengals are C tier. Berbers, they've actually had a slight nerf. No changes besides that. Their villagers now move 5% faster in the Dark Age and then 10% from Feudal Age and onwards. While in the past it was always 10% for the Berbers through every age. So a slight nerf for Berbers, but I think Berbers are still pretty good. Quite flexible civ. They have great cavalry, obviously. I think they are B tier. Bohemians have had one change in that the Hussite reforms research cost is reduced from 800 food, 450 gold to 500 food, 450 gold, so 300 less food, which is quite neat. For example, Hufnitze, and they're gonna get converted by monks. You can do the monk resistance techs with food and not gold, so it's quite neat. Bohemians, however, I think they're B tier. They have a really good economy once they get up and running, but the tech tree is a little bit rough to play against the top civs. They also have the massive combat potential with something like Hankinner playing Castle Age, for example. If you get to like Imperial Age though, the Halberdier, Hankinner, Skirm, they have Arbalest as well, Hufnitze, great monks. They have a lot of potential, but I still think they are a little bit awkward to play through the mid stages of the game. Britons have had a slight change in that their archery range is now, the team bonus is only 10% instead of 20%. That's obviously a direct nerf on their only one as well. Not a massive one though, of course, and Britons are still pretty solid. I think A tier. They can still beat any civ. They have some weakness though, and again in their tech tree they don't rely too much on mobility and such, so civ like Berbers, for example, can easily outplay and outmaneuver a Britons player, but still Britons very solid civ for sure. Bulgarians, they do receive gambesons. The only other change is that stone count does not impact the starting town center, which is irrelevant to Arabia. So Bulgarians, I think they're B tier. They have a lot of potential with their early men arm play. Obviously they get the men arm upgrade for free and cheaper blacksmith upgrades. Your range tech is a bit limited, but overall still a civ with potential, and I think they belong in the B tier. Alright, Burgundians have had a quite significant nerf to their Flemish militia in particular. I don't think Flemish militia, well, how to say, they were pretty broken, but in 1-on-1 Arabia you didn't see it too often. Now, of course, with the changes, I don't think you're going to see it at all, pretty much, going forward. Maybe sometimes more for the memes, but it's quite expensive now. So Burgundians, if you get a really closed map, easy to wall, you're definitely in a situation where you can pull off a very strong Burgundian play. But again, they are a bit awkward now. They also have had some nerfs over the last couple of patches with their economy bonuses. I think I'm going to put them B tier. They do have the option to play something like Cavalier in the Castle Age as well, and you have a great economy. Just if you can survive those first early minutes of Feudal Age, mid-Feudal Age, early Castle Age, etc. to get into the area where you actually shine. But having Flemish militia being way less of an option now definitely hurts their long-term options. Changes to Burmese are quite small. They have now received gambesons, and the elite Arambai upgrade has been like shrinked a bit the distance between food and gold. So the elite upgrade is now 1,000 food, 750 gold. A little bit more expensive on gold, less expensive on food. Still don't think it's going to change too much about them. They only have 1 armor upgrade on ranged units, even make their skirmishers not being too tanky against things like crossbows, for example. Even my pikeman upgrade is cheaper as well. Militia line upgrades come in faster. There's a lot of bonuses towards the infantry line, and Burmese get +1 attack on infantry for free, and they have a lot cheaper monk techs. So I could see a lot of potential with Burmese in some sort of pikeman, longsword, monk, siege type of play. It's obviously not mobile at all for an Arabia map, but I think a style like that could have a lot of potential. So I think I'm gonna bump Burmese up to B tier. These also get wood upgrade for free, right? So they are still a pretty solid economic civ with options for a scary unit like Arambai. Burmese might be one of the surprise civs this patch, where they kind of slowly climb up the tier list. But for now, I think B tier is where they belong. Arambai is the worst unique unit in the game. Oh, Jack. Ooh. Careful there. That's a big statement that I disagree with heavily. Byzantines, very few changes, if any. They receive Gambesons, and now they have Greek Fire also additionally providing 5 splash damage to Bomber Towers. Bomber Tower is not a building you see very often in 1v1 Arabia. Gambesons could have an impact, but you don't really play champions with Byzantines either very often. But Byzantines still super flexible, super hard to play against, pretty much as any civ. They have so many counter units, cheaper counter options. I think they're just a solid A tier civ because it's so hard to play against them, like I said, with any civ. But then again, they also feel a bit awkward to play. So it's a bit of a tricky civ where it's like no one wants to play them, but no one wants to play against them. So Celt has had a few changes. Stronghold now, the unique tech in the Castle Age for Celts, now make the arrows from towers and castles shoot even faster. Stronghold also additionally heals allied infantry near castles by 30 HP per minute. So they have like a passive heal around castles now. I'm not sure how big the radius is, but I think it's fairly solid. So to play like Trebuchet War with infantry healing next to the castles can be quite neat. Celts also always been a scary civ in the opening, where you have like faster moving men-at-arms, followed by skirm, bush, or archers, because you have the wood bonus as well. They also get the Gambesons, so I mean, their infantry could be maybe viable now with the faster movement speed. And the Boat Raiders also got a buff. Quite a solid buff, actually. I'm not sure where I would put them in the past. Probably maybe C tier, but I think they are also a solid B tier civ. Celts could also be one of the winners, where they potentially now, with their extra threat of infantry, especially with their Boat Raiders potentially in like early Imperial Age switches, they might even push their way up to like something like A tier. But for now, I think B tier is where they belong. Chinese, no changes whatsoever. They did revert all the changes they were initially planning to do with Chinese. So Chinese untouched from previous patch. That naturally means that they're also untouched as possibly the best Arabia civ in the game. Another thing I just want to point out before we continue, this list is pretty much based on 3 villager start. In 9 villager start, for example, Chinese is not necessarily as good as on 3 villager start, so I'm thinking about 3 villager start when I'm making this tier list. Cumans, another civ that has had no changes. I think it's a B tier civ. I think they're amazing in post-Imperial Age, actually, with their faster moving cavalry. Kipchak, I think, is an amazing cost-effective unit in 1-1 as well. With the 2 TC play in Feudal Age, it's also tough to play against. I think they have weaknesses as well, so I think in the end they're probably A tier or B tier, but I think it's hard to play them. Very hard, actually. You can get easily punished by a lot of civs. So I think B tier probably is where they belong, but I could easily see a case being made for A tier as well. So Dravidians have a new bonus now, a civ bonus, where siege units cost minus 33% wood. It's quite neat. Bomber cannons you have access to as well since the last patch. Getting a discount on those is very helpful, but then obviously throughout Castle Age as well with Mangonel, Scorpions, you also have a solid discount there. Now you don't obviously have rams with the Dravidians, so there's no impact on those. Medical Corps has also been reduced the cost. That's the one where your elephants will heal passively throughout the game, and that's also been buffed. And on top of that, they also get Gambesons. Now I think Dravidians are a civ is a civ with a lot of potential. Their weakness is still the lack of mobility. They don't have good cavalry, or people make the meme that Dravidians don't have a stable, you know. It's kind of accurate, but I think they are potentially as well one of the winners with this patch, because they already have a discount on their barracks upgrades. So upgrading longsword, men-at-arms, Gambesons, all the unique the techs for the infantry already cheaper, and now it's even easier to get those. And combine that with good range tree, faster firing skirms, you have arbalest, elephant archers if that's viable, and bomber cannon. You have like the perfect composition for 1-1 Arabia, where as long as it's not about mobility, where you can play like infantry with arbalest or skirms behind and bomber cannons. So I think Dravidians potentially one of the winners of this patch. I would dare put them in A tier. Not necessarily S tier, I don't think they're up there, but A tier I think is a reasonable prediction for Dravidians at the moment. Ethiopians is also one of those civs where we don't know exactly where they're going to stand after this patch, because their unique unit might be the one that is changed the most with the Shuttle Warriors. So Royal Heirs, the previous tech that made them spawn almost instantly, is pretty much given to them for free right now. They also have the tech being changed to that shuttles and camel units receive -3 damage from mounted units. Suddenly we have shuttles who already have a massive damage output. They're gonna do amazing against possibly, especially things like Hussar, for example. Your shuttles are going to wreck Hussars now. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be against Paladin, but in general, just the shuttles being fairly cheap as well. I think you're going to trade very cost effectively against pretty much any mounted unit in the game now. It also is a bit of an encouragement to go camels. Camels already counter cavalry units, so now they also have the extra melee damage reduction on top of that. And the faster producing shuttles apply once you have elite shuttle warrior. Shuttles is probably one of the units we see the least, next to things like Teutonic Knights and things like that. So I think these changes for sure are going to make shuttles way more popular. The team bonus is also changed to that the outposts have line of sight, but stone cost is also reduced, so that's a very solid team bonus now, because vision is so underrated still in the game. So when you can make outposts without investing into the stone, you don't have to like sacrifice building an extra town center or something to build 2-3 outposts. That's also a massive change. I think Ethiopians kind of playing with the idea of S tier, but I think A tier is a very good place for them. Franks changes are pretty much that they receive Gambesons, nothing else. I think Franks is a solid A tier. They can't really compete with the top tier. I mean, they can beat them, but I still think on paper they're probably not better than Chinese or Aztecs or on the same level. Goth also received a new cheeky bonus. Hunt now lasts 20% longer. Keep in mind, you already carry a lot more food with Goths on Hunt. So I think this also makes it way more viable for Goth to send out 3, 4, 5 villagers and just long distance hunt deer, for example. Maybe you can combine this now with some cheeky forward plays where you go and build a 4 barrack range and just hunt deer and then go all the way back home, whatnot. Besides that, no changes whatsoever, but of course they get all the general changes to infantry as well. So Goth probably gonna see a slight increase here. I think in the past we would have them in C and D tier. I think now B tier is realistic. I don't think the hunt bonus is necessarily going to push them straight into A or S tier. You don't have Gambesons with Goth, which is probably a good thing. We'll see. I'm excited to try Goth though anyway. A B tier feels like a lot. I'm now looking at the list and I'm like, do I want to put Goth on the same level as Bohemians, Bulgarians, Burmese, Celts, Cumans? Again, this is a prediction tier list, so I could be wrong. I'm going to keep them there for now, but obviously I could be very wrong here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Goth in a month or two dropping down the tier list. Gurjara. Kshatriya's cost is now increased slightly. It's now 500 food instead of 200 and 450 gold instead of 400. I think Kshatriya's the tech for Gurjara, which makes the food cost of military units 25% cheaper, I think is one of the most OP techs in the game. It still remains with a very flexible tech tree. Gurjara is super scary to play against. At least the Shramsha riders have been nerfed a little bit. They now cost 10 extra gold. And the reload time for the projectile dodging is also increased a little bit. So I think they had a little bit of a hit, but I still think Gurjara are a solid A tier civ. If you get to the late game as well and you have like cheaper Hussar combined with chakram throwers, access to camels that hard counter any cavalry with extra melee armor, and Shivamsha riders, it's still incredible civilization overall. I think they do belong in the A tier. Hindustanis has had no changes, but as we know, in the most recent patch before this one, they did get that food nerf. Their units cost, or the villagers cost a little bit extra food now in the Dark Age compared to before. They're definitely an S tier or A tier civilization. The infantry changes I don't think impacts them at all, and they had no changes in the most recent patch. Yet they're probably gonna have to go S tier, because it's just such a solid civ to play. You have flexible tech tree, the villager discount is still super powerful. You know what, maybe I'm gonna go A tier, because infantry play is gonna make Hindustanis worse, because Hindustanis don't have knights, they only have camels. So if we see more infantry units now used in early stages, Hindustanis might be a little bit worse against that. You know what, I'm gonna sneak Hindustanis in A tier. This is one I could easily get wrong when we revisit this tier list in a month or two. That's the fun thing about this concept. I'm gonna be completely wrong with so many civs, I think. The only change to Huns is that atheism now costs 500 food and 300 wood, so there is no gold cost whatsoever. It used to be 500 gold. It's obviously not a big change. I feel like the fluidity of playing Huns is still underrated, and they have such a nice flexible dynamic tech tree that I would easily see them being A tier. But at the same time, I'm seeing civs below. Like, I think they could struggle against like Berbers still. Had no time to build houses, faster producing stables, cheaper cavalchers. They're still an amazing civ for Arabia. Now we have one of the big ones, Incas. So many changes to Incas. I'm not going to list them all. I'm going to tell my editor to just pop it up somewhere here, because Incas had so many changes and they are maybe the biggest winner in this patch. Big one standing out is that the military units now cost minus 15%, 20, 25, and 30% 20% to all ages. All military units that cost food, that is, have that discount. They are also one of this, so they're going to be the ones with the cheaper eagles right now. They might overtake Aztecs and Mayans as the best eagle civ by far. And eagles, we know, are super dominant in Arabia. Is this enough? Obviously, in the past, they were probably like C tier maybe. But now they're easily A tier, possibly S tier. That's what we're talking about. That's the type of changes we're working with here. The team bonus as well is pretty cool now. They start with a free llama, as they always did, but now all their teammates do as well. So even in team games, I think we're going to see Incas as a flank way more often than before. So yeah, I'm still arguing with myself. Do I put them A? Are they really S tier now? If you get to a castle age and you can start spamming cheap eagles, well, cheap eagles in quotes, feels weird to put Incas above Hindustanis, above Britons. I think I'm going to go Incas S tier. I would not be surprised to see the conclusion that they are actually not S tier and rather A tier. But I can't see them go below A tier. So I feel pretty confident that Incas are going to stay in S or A tier. But I'm going to take the gamble and go S tier. I think the changes are significant enough. And again, with the access to the cheapest eagle now in the game. Worth pointing out is they lose access to supplies with the food discount. Naturally, that makes sense. And they also don't get gambesons. So their champion line is not going to be that great. But then again, you probably don't want to go that direction with Incas anyway. Yeah, damn. I think Incas, oof. Wait, S tier though? Oof. So I'm reading through all the changes now, and I'm like, do we put them A tier? No, I'm gonna stick with my prediction of S tier. Although I'm starting to lean more a little bit towards that. Maybe they're rather in A tier, but I'm going S tier. Let's do it. Italians have had no changes whatsoever. Their main weakness still is that they don't have a relying counter to cavalry besides the Genoese, because they miss the halberdier upgrade. Besides that, they have condos, obviously. They have hussar, cavalier, arbalest with extra armor. They still have a fantastic tech tree for 1v1 with the cheaper advancing to the ages as well. Very solid civ with amazing timing potential. So I would even not be opposed to putting them A tier, but still, whenever I play Italians, it feels a bit awkward. So I think B tier is a good place for them. Although, again, I could easily see them be A tier. By the way, guys, I'm not listing the civs in order within the tiers, as I think it's too hard to do that. Changes to Japanese are that they get gambesons for their champions, so the champions are going to be amazing now. Also, the samurai now is cheaper. It's only 50 food instead of 60 gold food in the past, so samurai might see more of those. They also have hoardings now, so their castles are going to be a bit more tanky. And Kataparuto is 200 wood and 100 gold cheaper as well. So you might see more Kataparuto trebs as well in Arabia. However, Japanese still massive potential with the early men-at-arms, pike, spearmen, whatever, early infantry into archers. They have the cheaper mill, mining camp, lumber camp, whatnot, which makes them save a lot of wood in the early game. Still think I'm gonna have to go B tier, although that's also a civ I could easily see A tier, especially with my prediction of things like longsword, pikeman, monk, siege pushes becoming a little bit more popular. Japanese could also benefit from that. They also have cavalture, heavy cavaltures fully upgraded. They have arbalest, Yasama towers. There's so many bonuses that could potentially make them super sick. A tier, I feel like I cannot justify putting them next to these civs, although I would say they're very, very close. Khmer, A tier in my opinion, still very flexible civilization. They've had some changes to the ballista elephants, where ballista elephants are a little bit more vulnerable to siege. Not massively impactful for Arabia, but still, the farming, the way their farming works, the flexible tech tree, I think Khmer still, with their amazing timings, amazing economy, still a definite A-tier civilization. Koreans, massive change. Turtle ships have 1 extra range. If you find a pond on Arabia, you can make turtle ships. Only other change is that they receive gambesons. Now, of course, they have extra armor on their range units for free, or the armor upgrades in the blacksmith for free. I still think they are going to be a permanent B tier. I don't think any changes to the militia line is going to push them up the list. B tier, they get guard tower for free, which is quite nice. War wagons can be great. Would discount on all military units is nice. I would even argue that they could be C tier with Bengalis, but I think B tier is a good position for them. Lithuanians have had a bit of a change to their civ. They don't start with 150 food for free at the start anymore, but instead you get 100 food per town center. So when you start, you will have 100 food extra because of your starting town center. But then as you add 2 or 3 or 4 town centers in the castle age, you get another 100 food for free as soon as those TCs goes up. It's gonna help, of course, with initiating the boom and whatnot in Castle Age, but besides that, no changes to Lithuanians whatsoever. Lightis is an amazing unit in 1-1. Fast moving skirmish spears help a lot. If you pick up relics, your knights become amazing. You have Magyar Hussar, you have Winged Hussar, you have. So I still think Lithuanians is probably an A-tier civ. They very much rely on timings though, like early game advantages. Yeah, I think we're gonna keep them A-tier, but I'm actually considering B-tier as well. But I still feel like they're reliable. They're a very reliable civ in the opening, where you can get into a good position no matter what. But of course, you don't necessarily, at least in the past, you didn't have a eco bonus past the opening. But now you also get some food with extra town centers. So I think they're A tier, although I honestly would not be surprised to see Lithuanians potentially drop to B tier. Magyars have had 0 changes. I think they're B tier. Their scout opening is still dangerous, followed by crossbow archers, cav archers, whatnot. Definitely not at the level of the other top civs, but still scary civ to play against. If it goes either up or down, I would say it's more likely to go down. But I think Magyars are on par with these types of civilizations here, so these for 1-1 Arabia. Imperial Age, they might be one of the best civs with their cav archers with extra range and damage, and Magyar Hussarf without costing gold. Great civ, hard to play against, hard to play. You don't have a reliable eco bonus. And we have another one of the potential big winners in my opinion. So Malay now get infantry armor upgrades for free. That's gonna make a bit of a kickstart to their potential men-at-arms rush now. If they want to start doing men-at-arms rush, you get armor upgrades for free hitting into Castle Age as well. So Malay longsword play, massive potential there potentially. Massive potential there potentially, great sentence. They suddenly might have massive potential with longsword play, for example, in early Castle Age, because you will have that armor upgrade for free. And on top of that, you also receive gambesons. So Malay is one of those civs as well where I keep coming back to the potential infantry monk siege play. Malay, I think, could be a massive winner in that style as well. And I do see a lot of potential now with infantry play with Malay. Keep in mind as well, you have gambesons now. So in Imperial Age as well, if you get the unique tech where your two-handed swordsman will not cost gold, they will have +1 pierce armor now compared to before. So that's a massive buff to their trash champions or trash two-handed swordsmen. And I'm confidently going to put them in A tier. I would not be surprised actually if they end up in S tier. You heard it here first. But yeah, A tier. Of course, now I'm just talking infantry. Keep in mind, they still have the 66% faster advancing to the next age. You can play archers, arbalest, elephants, monk siege. You have so many options with Malay. Karambits are amazing as well, potentially. So this civ now, with that extra buff it gets in the opening, potentially, massive potential. I need to increase my vocabulary regarding potential. And on top of that, if you find a pond, you can fish boom with Malay. Malians are also one of the potential big winners of this patch, with Guerreros actually receiving a massive buff, 10 extra HP. It might not sound like a lot, but it's a lot for such a fragile unit. They also had their gold the gold lasted 30% longer, has been replaced by villagers dropping off 15% more gold. I saw Doubt playing yesterday and I saw him dropping off 12 gold instead of 11. I thought it was going to be like 11 and then 23. But he dropped it off and it was 12, 24. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work because 15% should be 11.5. I don't know. But anyway, you're going to drop off more gold with every trip you take. So you're going to need less vills on gold. On average, maybe 1-2 less vills on gold and still be able to accomplish all the same things you do. You also get, obviously, the cheaper buildings on wood. Every building on wood is cheaper except the town center. So your openings, I feel like it's going to be super good. Malians used to be one of the best civs in the game when they had the gold mining upgrade for free. They were arguably S tier back then. And I feel like we're pulling them slowly back in the same direction. Malians have such a flexible tech tree in Castle Age as well. You have camels, you have knights, you have cav archers. You can play anything in Castle Age. And now Guerreros might have more potential as well. I'm gonna make a ballsy saying S tier! Malians, I think, are gonna be insane. You heard it here first. The only weakness Malians might have is post-Imperial Age. You do have Farimba Light Cavalry, but if that gold runs out, your options are like Farimba Light Cavalry, skirmishes without bracer. You don't receive gambesons as well, by the way, but you have that extra pierce armor for free, obviously. Pikemen only. So the main weakness of Malians is going to be post-Imperial Age. Guerreros only got 5 HP, 35 to 45, 40 to 50. That looks like 10 to me. Wait, am I reading it wrong? Oh, you're right. I'm reading it wrong. A quick fix there. Guerreros only got 5 HP buff. Still a solid buff for a very fragile unit. Not as much as I thought it was initially. But I'm not going to put them down from S tier just because of that. Guerreros are still a good unit. And I liked them before they got this buff. So 5 extra HP. Muy bueno. Oof. I actually went Malian S tier. I wasn't sure if I was going to do that, but I did. I'm committed now. Mayans is not a civ that has not received any changes whatsoever. They're indirectly nerfed. You can say directly nerfed by the Eagles, costing more now. Mayans is still going to be an amazing civ. Great economy, archer. Like, you more often than not play archer line with Mayans anyway. So there's no reason to put Mayans down from S tier. Mongols is not a civ that has not received any changes. Mongols is one of those awkward civs where like you have enormous potential in the opening, where you're very likely to take an advantage one way or another, maybe military, maybe just economy, maybe get faster timing to castle age, whatnot. But you always feel like it's a bit of an awkward transition past feudal age. You don't really know which line you want to commit on. Do you want to go knights? Do you want to crossbow, cav archers? It's all kind of expensive if you do anything except the standard stuff. You would love to get to Mangudai maybe. You have lancers that are potentially good. But either way, the transitions just feel a bit awkward from the feudal age. Unless you take a massive lead in feudal age, obviously. But I would argue Mongols could be A tier, but at the same time, I do like a lot of the other civs better. The main issue with Mongols, I think, for a lot of players is that they automatically think I should go Mangudai. So they base their whole game plan somewhat around Mangudai. But keep in mind, Mongols could go heavy cow archers, they could make Arbalest. You have Hussar with more HP, you have Elite Step Lancers. By the way, Elite Step Lancers have 1 extra armor now. And with Mongols, they don't have the last armor upgrade in the Blacksmith, but they have extra HP on their Lancers. So maybe Lancers is going to be a core unit now for Mongols in the post-Imperial Age. I could see a case for Mongols being A tier, depending on how things play out, but I also think B tier is a very logical place for them right now. Persians, no real change. They get Gambesons. That's the only thing that affects them in Arabia. Imperial Age for Persians is quite weak. You don't really have too many options like Halberdier, Henkineers. You do have the trash bows, which can be nice, but they're still only crossbow units, right? Paladin is too expensive for 1-1. You have Hussar though. Maybe Persians is a C tier civ. You have faster working town centers. Although Persians can be executed very nicely, and with their bonuses, you can stay on level with civs in the A tier list economically and military wise. But at some point, when they get their next tech upgrade to Arbalest or upgrade to this or that, that's where Persians start struggling. They can definitely be competitive in Castle Age though by far, but I feel like they at some point in the game, at some stage in the game, if you don't have a solid lead, you kind of fall short compared to most other civs. I think Persians could easily be B tier, but I think C tier is a good place for them. They might be one of the civs that we see get some change in the future, I think. I also feel like we might not need a D tier, because I feel there's no civ that is that bad now these days that they're automatically D tier. Poles has had one change where their villagers now regenerate HP only starting in the feudal age. I don't think that's going to change much. You might be slightly more vulnerable to a drush, for example, but besides that, no changes. Obviously, they did get the Folwark nerf. Poles is going to remain one of those civs with massive potential, but also some weaknesses where they can get punished. I still think they're an A tier civ, especially if you get up and running with Poles. Let's say your mid castle is an even game, but your Folwark are getting up and going, you get a castle drop, suddenly you're an S tier civ. But I think A tier is a good place because they have weaknesses still in the early game. You rely a lot on those Folwark. And now my child, they've gotten a... Again, I'm not 100% sure exactly how this is going to play out. Portuguese have Gambesons now, but the organ gun has been completely redesigned. From my understanding, they're now going to be really good against infantry units and like masses that come towards you. They don't have the same damage output anymore, so you don't do as much damage. So I reckon like cavalry units are going to be way better now against organ guns. But organ guns will do a lot of damage towards infantry units or low HP units in general. I'm going to definitely have to try them out though, but I feel like my baby organ guns are going to be a very situational unit now and not anymore a unit you can justify going for in every situation, which is probably a good thing. Let's be fair, let's be real. Portuguese though, again, amazing bonuses. I still think they're easily S tier. Get wood from their berry gathering. You have a gold discount on every unit, including monks, including now the new Gambesons champions. There's just so many things going for Portuguese. So even if they're losing their unique unit, they still have so many other things that are just making them way better. Saracens, not a civ that has not had too many changes. They receive Gambesons. Saracens do actually have fully upgraded champion. So with Gambesons, they could probably justify making champions a lot as well. Maybe we'll see Saracens be one of those infantry's monk siege plays with their market abuse, right? I say market abuse. We should call it market use. It's not abusing the market, it's using the market. I could see them be one of those civs that try to utilize the style of infantry monk siege. Sorry, I just placed them there. I'm not putting them in D tier, don't worry. Still very tricky civ. You rely a lot on the market to get your timings. I think it's a B tier. I cannot justify going higher than that. Although we could easily see Saracens taking games off the top tier civs, but that's just the nature of the civilization and their timings. Zealotry has been buffed. It's a bit cheaper now, so you get that zealotry upgrade easier. Not massive impact though for Saracens. Sicilians is also one of those civs that have had massive changes in the new patch. The dungeon, for example, is now a prerequisite for an range or a stable. So on paper, you don't need a barracks. The dungeon can also produce spearmen. So you really don't need a barracks potentially. unless you want to do upgrades, of course. Sicilians also receive gambesons. They've done some changes now with the farm bonus. They get a little bit extra food on top when they do the farm upgrades. Donjons get affected by hoardings. The sergeants have had a buff. They get 5 extra HP in feudal age, 10 extra in castle age. But with that, First Crusade has also been nerfed a little bit. It's cheaper, but it only produces 5 or spawns 5 sergeants per town center compared to before, which was 7. Elite sergeant upgrade is also way cheaper now. It went from 1100 food, 800 gold to 800 food, 675 gold. Sicilians will be attempted to play different ways. Opening of like 5 villager forward with a donjon where you can then make spearmen. So you do a donjon rush and then add a range behind the donjon, because you don't need the barracks anymore, so you save that wood. You could also do it where you build a defensive donjon on an exposed resource and then do a stable follow-up after the donjon or something. Like, there's a lot of different ways to explore Sicilians right now. Do I think they're suddenly gonna be S tier, A tier? Probably not, but of course they do have the bonus damage reduction, which is quite good. Who knows, maybe the donjon being a prerequisite is going to make it so much easier to play stable, range opening, whatnot. On top of that, you can afford horse color and such way easier as well, because you do save that wood, right? Sicilians, I think, has received a significant buff. You might even see sergeants in feudal age these days, in castle age, because of that HP buff. I still cannot justify going over B tier with Sicilians. I wouldn't be surprised to see them end up maybe in A tier, because they do have a solid tech tree as well, in my opinion, for 1-1 Arabia. I could be wrong here though. This is one of those where I'm like excited to see how it plays out, and I would not be surprised if they actually end up being A tier. Slavs, another one of those where I can see them becoming a significant winner in this patch. Like, Boyar cost used to be 50 food, 80 gold. Now they're 60 food, 70 gold. Boyar is an incredibly good unit. They're so good. And now they are cheaper than a knight. Boyar are back. Dragina cost as well has been decreased from 1200 food, 500 gold to 900 food, 500 gold. I always felt like Dragina was one of those techs that are really hard to justify because that food is just so high. But now that one is quite low. They also receive gambesons, and of course they have free supplies and free gambesons. A lot of these bonuses that Slavs have right now, faster farming as well, makes it easier to play the infantry line. I can see Slavs really dominating with infantry monk siege. Keep in mind, on top of that, you have great economy behind this most likely. You can easily justify playing knights, light cav, whatever to support. You probably don't want to go the ranged line at any point. And then late game you have the option now where you can probably justify going for boyars, which I felt like with the 80 gold cost and producing them from castles, I always felt like boyars really couldn't be justified because they just weren't affordable. That might be flipped now, and I feel like Slavs suddenly have a lot of flexibility in their tech tree and their early game as well. I mean, the main thing is that you're gonna stray away from their ranged units no matter what, besides siege. All these changes have unlocked Slavs completely. I think Slavs are gonna be one of the big winners. I'm gonna put them A tier. Slavs though, I can see actually taking a step up to S tier. Another civ that has had a significant adjustment, especially for what used to be quite a weak civ on 1-1 Arabia. Now they've had some changes. Inquisition, the unique tech that decreases the monk conversion length, now also gives missionary +1 range. So missionaries, are they viable maybe now? Who knows? I still think unless they can pick up relics, they're probably not going to be a viable monk unit, because monks just with that 9 range are just slightly better no matter what. Conquistadors have -1 pierce armor in the castle age. The elite one is unchanged, but -1 pierce armor in the castle age for conquistadors means that a unit like crossbows, cav archers, etc. suddenly are going to start trading quite effectively against the conks. So they're not going to have the same incredible power spike that they could have in the past, but it's still a conquistador, right? They have incredible attack, they're mobile, super scary unit still, but of course very hard to get to. However, new bonus for Spanish, you gain 20 gold for each technology you research. Now keep in mind, blacksmith upgrades don't cost gold at all. That's one of your civ bonuses. So if you do like armor for cavalry and forging, that's 40 gold. You do double bit axe, 60, horse collar, 80 gold. You do town watch, 100 gold, wheelbarrow, 120 gold. Suddenly you receive 120 gold for free just from researching things you probably would have researched anyway. It is quite significant because it means you can always shift your economy a little bit and have like a few more bills on food instead of gold. Maybe you get bloodlines without mining any gold at all. Things like this can really kick Spanish into the next gear in terms of surviving the opening, in terms of getting to the castle age a little bit earlier, in terms of getting those knights up earlier, making those conquistadors, making that castle faster, you know? You could possibly go to castle age without mining gold. That's something that could be really sick. Loom gives gold as well, for example. So like you get a lot of gold for free if you just play a little bit of a prolonged feudal age with a lot of upgrades. I can see Spanish being fairly good now. Probably not S tier or A tier, but B tier for sure, right? And I would not even be surprised if people find a way to play Spanish now going forward where they could even be a contender for A tier. But they also receive gambesons, by the way, so their champions line is also going to be great. I'm excited to play Spanish. It's actually one of those civs where they've always felt hard to play in Arabia. But now I'm really looking forward to it. Oh yeah, true. Arena Spanish are gonna have a really solid buff now. Even for water maps. Dude, water maps are gonna be sick for Spanish now. You do double bit axe, you do loom. You can make 2 fire galleys after that without mining gold. Ooh. Tatars. Very little changes to them. They have had one change actually. The Keshik train time is increased, so they don't produce as fast as before. It's a slight change, not a massive change. I don't think it's going to impact them very much. Tatars is one of those civs that are like A or B tier. If there's a lot of hills on the map, obviously beneficial for Tatars. You have longer lasting sheep, great for your economy. You get thumb ring for free. Trying to compare now, I'm looking at the B tier civilizations, and I feel like I might end up with Tatars in A tier. Tatars have a great tech tree for 1v1 as well. You have Keshik, which are amazing. You have Hussar. The one thing though with Tatars that might be big is that Steppe Lancers now have +1. Elite Steppe Lancers have 1 extra armor in Imperial Age. And that can push Tatars into... Like, Tatars already have a unique tech where they give extra armor to Steppe Lancers. And they have the last armor upgrade for Lancers. So their Lancers are suddenly going to be super tanky. And I can imagine Tatars easily being an A-tier civilization now. They already have so many good bonuses with timings and economy bonus as well. Would not be surprised to see Tatars now in Imperial Age having like Hussar, Lancer, Cav Archer. Maybe even Lancer Skirm. Maybe you rather want to make Lancers than Keshik. I think Tatars have a lot of unlocked potential. We're gonna have to wait and see. I'm excited for it. Teutons, also a civ with not a lot of changes. We have Gambesons for them, which means that the champions are going to be sick because they already get that +2 melee armor for free. So now they also get +1 pierce armor. Maybe champion are going to be a massive part of Teutons' play now. Again, infantry, monk, siege, massive potential there. They save a lot of wood with their farming as well. Maybe it's the rise of Teutons. Who knows? Teutonic Knights as well now cost only 30 gold instead of 40. So I honestly think we're going to see a lot more Teutonic Knights as well going forward, especially in team games where you can trade. Yeah, I can see something like champion halberdier mix and cannoneers with bomber cannon, with trebs, whatever. Still, weakness is obviously the lack of mobility with their cavalry. They have only scout cavalry. They don't even get light cavalry. They have paladins, but they're slow. You get extra melee armor though, so that's nice. I feel like I want to put them A tier, but I also have to listen to my brain and say that B tier is probably still sufficient. However, this is one of those civs where I can easily see them end up A tier. Turks, they've only had one change. Artillery cost is increased from 450 wood, 500 gold to 600 food, 650 gold. So a required nerf in my opinion, because artillery, they removed the stone cost completely, so it has to be expensive because 2 extra range on bomber cannons is insane. It's not going to change Turk much. They have great Hussar, great Cav Archers, but still a bit awkward to play. I think they belong in B tier, and I don't see that changing. There is some potential though. I use the word potential a lot, but they have extra pierce armor on their Hussar and light Cav scouts for free, which is very nice for Arabia, but you don't have pikeman, you don't have elite skirm. Your trash options are Hussar. Period. Still a good civ, but I cannot justify having them over B tier. Vietnamese, no changes besides paper money cost being reduced. It's now only 550 food and 200 wood, so gold cost is completely removed, makes it way easier to justify this upgrade. However, the paper money upgrade doesn't do too much for you because you need so many wood choppers to even like get a decent amount of gold income from it. So not a big deal, but still very good civilization. Vietnamese is one of those civs where I also feel like they're floating between A and B tier. The infantry changes are not impacting them at all. They don't get Gambesons as well, so they're receiving no benefits from this patch whatsoever pretty much. Extra HP on ranged units is really good. They have archer line, Cav Archers get extra HP as well. Rattan Archers can be a solid unit in 1v1. They have halberdier, you have bomber cannon, you have Imperial Age skirmishers. I think it has to be A tier. Imperial Age skirmishers in particular, massive benefit in 1v1 Arabia. We have elephants with a potential 100 extra HP. So if you have the gold to spare, elephants can be a massive swing. I think A tier is fine, but I would be considering Vietnamese potentially B tier as well. But I also feel like their bonuses are very well suited for 1v1 Arabia, so A tier is where I'm going to place them. And that brings us to the creme de la creme. Vikings, one of the other civs that have had massive changes and redesign of how the unit is used. Chieftains now also provides infantry with gold generation while attacking villagers, trade units, and monks. They're becoming the pillaging berserks Vikings that they are supposed to be. That's in addition now to getting the bonus attack against cavalry, which they already got with the chieftains upgrade. The way it works is 5 gold per villager and 20 gold per monk and trade unit. So even getting like a berserkers into a woodline of an enemy, let's say you kill 30 units, that's still a little bit of gold, right? Suddenly you can afford 2 more rams or another trebuchet, you know? So these berserk raids or infantry raids in general now, especially in the 1v1 Arabia game, for example, where gold is scarce towards the end, right? Suddenly you don't even want to lose any villagers to Viking infantry because they will get a little bit of extra gold. Can kind of swing. Like suddenly if you can afford 3 trebuchets extra from raiding villagers. That can easily swing a game in your favor again. The chieftain's cost is also reduced. It's now 600 food and 450 gold only, slightly cheaper than before. And Berserkergang is replaced with Bogsveigar. It's 650 food, 500 gold. It's giving archer line +1 attack and longboats, both longboats. Okay. Now you don't have thumb rings still with the Arbalest of Vikings, so they're still not as proficient as you would like them to be, but still that one extra attack makes it a little bit more just like you can justify going for the Arbalest a little bit more than before. Ever since I lost thumb ring, every time Viking transitioned to Imperial Age, it was like, okay, I need to now switch to Berserks. Now I feel like you can probably still justify staying with the Arbalest line a little bit longer, but still I would rather have thumb ring, all things considered. And with the Berserkergang being removed, they now get that passive extra heal from Berserkergang in the past for free, pretty much. So you now get 40 HP per minute as a Berserk, so another significant buff. And on top of that, Vikings also receive Gambusons, which gives the champion line +1 pierce armor, and Vikings infantry have extra HP by default as a civ bonus, so the Viking champions now are going to be really, really good. You do get wheelbarrow handcart for free, massive eco boost. Vikings don't have great monks though, so I can't see the monk infantry siege play being too efficient. However, I think this might be enough to push them into A tier. Is it? I am a Viking myself, obviously, so I'm a little bit biased here. You know what? I think they're going to be A tier. Why not? They're probably B tier, but with I can see the economy bonus now combined with the everything else being buffed a little bit. I can see Vikings shining again. I'm going to stick with my heart and say Vikings are now A tier. That'll probably come and bite me in the butt, but I'm excited to find that out. So there you have it. This is my prediction tier list. I will revisit this in a month or so. Maybe after King of the Desert might be a good time. I can't wait to revisit this and see how many things I got wrong. Or if I nailed it and got everything right. Make sure to let me know in the comment section what you think, what I got right, what I got wrong, what your opinion is. Maybe there's something like maybe you think Bengalis is S tier, you know? Let me know and tell me why. That's the important thing. Don't just be like, Bengalis is S tier, you idiot. Tell me why, so I can tell you why you're wrong. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.